Today it feels great because I'm realizing I have creativity happening in me that I didn't think was possible before. So that gives me great hope and joy.
Well, it's really important that trans people feel safe, feel respected, treated with respect and dignity when they try to access healthcare. Healthcare in Canada is a universal right, so we should have those principles in place. It's when I go to access healthcare, I want to be treated with respect and dignity, so there is a duty and a responsibility for that to occur. And what happens, I can remember times when, before I found a really positive healthcare provider that understood, that was culturally sensitive to my needs, I avoided asking for help, accessing services, more or less to avoid things going wrong, to be treated badly. And it's still a tendency nowadays for that to happen. Trans people will access services, and when they're treated with respect and dignity, when people receive have negative experience, the human condition is to not repeat those behaviors. And so if we have negative experiences encountering access to healthcare, access to social services, or any of the social determinants of health, we will find ways to make do without them. Trans people will choose not to access health care for a variety of reasons, but being treated with disrespectfully and not as their lived identity is one reason. To be mispronounced or to use a legal identity on a health card, or to have data collection that's not representative of who who you're living as. People will just turn around and walk out and not access the health care that we're entitled to receive. But not only that, there's a good chance that we won't receive any health care or accept an emergency services when it gets to the point that's very expensive for the system. But also may access services that are not regulated, that are not that are outside of the system and could have very severe and negative consequences, short-term and long-term. And so, for example, what can happen is if someone feels like they need access to surgical procedures, hormones, they may get them on the underground economy through unregulated systems, and that there's been instances where that can cause significant injury and even death. And so I don't want to make it sound so negative, but you have to be really careful with that. And so that's why it's so important for healthcare services to be provided in a trans-friendly and trans-inclusive way. And so that's why some of the messages you're going to hear today are really important to incorporate into your everyday practice, so that people like myself can feel included when we try to access your services rather than feel excluded. And that's just not a good thing for anyone.
Oh yeah, last spring I had a big infection in my eye, and I was told I should go to the emergency department at this hospital. And when I showed up, I was greeted by a very friendly, outgoing, handsome young black man. And he totally put me at ease because my eye was throbbing. And then after he calmed me down, I guess, he asked me to go with him into his office, and we had to fill out an intake thing because I'd never been to that hospital before. So he was asking me some questions, and at one point he asked me what my email address was, so I said it's Rob_Lausche. Lausche is Mandarin Chinese term meaning venerable old fart or teacher. And of course, he got a big kick out of that, and it stayed in his mind. And then he asked me some more questions, and then he said, "Are you married?" And I said, "Yes." And he said, "Well, what's your wife's name?" And I looked at him and I said, "We really need some diversity education here." And he said, "Oh yeah, you said Chinese. What's her Chinese name?" So then I said, "Well, we really need some diversity education now." And he looked at me and I said, "I am married, yes, and I'm married to a man." And you could just see his whole composure just fading away. And he apologized, but you could tell that he knew that he should have handled it another way. And actually, I waited a few days, and then I called him back to tell him that I was okay. I hope he was okay. But that just spelled out to me what happens to other people, and I think some older LGBTQ folks would have been uncomfortable with that. I wasn't uncomfortable, I just thought this shouldn't be happening.
I was lucky to get a really good PSW, and we were a good match in terms of compatibility. And the main thing that worked for me was that she had very clear boundaries, so that made me feel very comfortable and safe. Well, the one thing that they don't tell you when you're receiving home care is that you have to get naked in front of a total stranger. And that is very unnerving, to say the least. Well, I was lucky to get a really wonderful PSW, and we bonded, and to this day we are still friends. I had to come out to her, but I took my time doing it because I wanted to feel comfortable and safe. And I waited a couple of months before I broached the subject, and I asked if she knew what a lesbian was, and she said that she didn't. So I explained to her what a lesbian was, and I was one of those people. And she said as far as she was concerned, that was no problem, and I was still Leslie. So we had a great relationship from there on.
So one time I went for, when I turned 50, I was sent by my physician to get regular healthcare checkups. One of them was a mammogram. And it was at the regular clinic that my physician, my health center sends people to, and I didn't think anything of it till I started filling out the form, and they only had like male, female categories, and they asked me some ridiculous questions. They seemed ridiculous because things like when I had had my last menstrual cycle, when I had had my last mammogram, this being my first one, some other questions about pregnancy, which seemed which totally, while I'm legally a woman, were not experiences I've had experience with. So I felt really, really uncomfortable just looking at the form. Understood that it was important to have this test done. And when I mentioned it to the technician when I went in for the test, and she kind of looked at me and said, "Well, most of the normal women can answer the questions." And that felt really, really problematic, and it shouldn't happen. I felt like walking out, getting up and walking out, but I went on and had the test done. Luckily, it went well, and I reported the incident to my physician the next time I saw him, and I've been having my mammograms done at a different center since then.
Well, I mean, and the word pathology is right too, because LGBTQ folks have been pathologized. And I came out in 1970, and it wasn't until 1973 that the American Psychiatric Association took homosexuality off the mental sickness list. And I had come to a decision myself well before that I wasn't mentally ill, I wasn't evil, and so on. But I do know that from the 50s on in Canada, the Mounties even had a machine invented so that they could tell who was gay and who wasn't gay. And that was in around 1955, I think it was, and it was called the Fruit Machine. People in the medical services, they reported to the RCMP if they thought that somebody was gay or wasn't gay, especially if that person was going to be in the army or work in the foreign service or defense system and so on. So that kind of thing was going on. I was never chemically castrated, as you probably know from the movie Imitation Game. But I do know some people who had electric shock treatment, and this is by people that they trusted then, but now they don't. And I think that's a history that when they say we treat everybody the same, well, that certainly wasn't the case in the past, and I'm not so sure it's the case even now. But that's why people still of my age or older than I am don't trust doctors, and they don't come out to their doctors. I came out to my doctors in Newfoundland. I came out to 6 doctors that were dealing with me at one time, and 3 of the 6 immediately, because I was gay, figured, oh, he's got HIV/AIDS. So that's the mode of thinking.
Washrooms in general, the bane of my existence. Seems it happens on a regular basis, especially when I get my hair cut short, which I do on a regular basis. But now it happens whenever I go into a washroom, I get stopped by the female police telling me that I'm in the wrong washroom because I don't appear to be a typical female. And it happened today, just coming here again.
There was one time, there's an example of when I almost didn't access services. Quite a few years ago, I was biking, fell off a bike and hurt my wrist, and it was very painful. I refused to go to the local hospital out by the cottage because I actually didn't think they would I had a feeling they wouldn't understand how to treat me with respect and dignity. And I came to my doctor in Toronto, sent me for tests at the hospital, and it was there were long lineups, and I was misgendered a number of times. Went back to my physician. He said, "No, that's the only place can you send me somewhere else?" He said, "It's the only place you have to go for tests. We need your X-rays to find out what's going on with your wrist." And so this time I went up and I showed the receptionist my health card, and before she could even say anything, I said, "My name is Susan, and it's important for me for you to refer to me in the way I'm presenting." And she looks at me, and she looks at the card, and she looks at me and looks at the card, and says, "I understand." And that was just like music, and that was that just made me feel so welcome, and such a different experience than when I went for tests and that didn't happen. So I still remember it to this day like it happened yesterday, because it was such a positive experience.
I think there's also a great resilience in the community, and you have families of choice, that sort of thing, where people really came together, worked together, and substituted for what their families couldn't give them, and what the medical service couldn't give them. As you know, I've been working with people in long-term care now for a couple of years, and I picked up on some things while walking down the halls or talking to people. And I think at the one long-term care center where I volunteer, what makes me think I would like to go there if I had to be in long-term care at some point in my life, it's because as soon as you go inside the door, there's the rainbow flag. It's not a huge thing. It's about that size. It's on the wall. You walk down the hallway to usually the grand hall where people meet, and there are signs up on the walls telling you about respect, inclusion, diversity. And by diversity, they don't just mean Polish, Italian, or something like that. As a matter of fact, the family committee is having an evening discussion on diversity, and it's LGBTQ diversity. And that just tells me I'm welcome there. And I think that wherever I go, I want to feel welcomed, I want to feel safe, and I want to have a staff that has been properly trained. I want some demonstration of cultural competency. I want them to ask me questions that I don't have to correct them. And I want to feel comfortable with whatever they're trying to find out about me. I want to make sure that while I'm there, I can be myself. I don't have to watch my P's and Q's. And that if somebody says anything out of line, that it will be dealt with by a member of the staff. We are told, and I've heard it and I've read it online when I look up long-term care facilities or nursing homes, that they're proud to say that we treat everybody the same. But we are not the same. We have a different history, different background. You're not going to talk to somebody, to a Jewish person who survived the death camps and ask them the same questions you might ask somebody else who was raised differently and had different life experience. The staff need to know where we're coming from, who they're dealing with, and they have to feel comfortable. Not just I'm comfortable, but they have to feel comfortable too. Ideal care for me would be in a situation in a long-term care facility where I feel welcome, I feel safe, I feel I can be myself. I want to have a safe, welcoming environment, and I want to have people that are working with me or I'm working with them, whether they're PSWs, nurses, whoever, that they are culturally competent. And by that I mean that they understand where I, as a gay man, where I'm coming from and what my needs are and so they can almost guess ahead of time, even before they meet me. They should be able to know some of the things that are important to me that I want to talk about. And I think if that training, and I know it is happening in some of the homes, and if that can continue to happen, and I've participated in that kind of training myself, then I think I would be very happy and very satisfied in a home which is welcoming, safe, and the people know who I am and what I am.
Well, there is a mantra out there about it gets better, and sometimes it gets better and sometimes it doesn't. And I like to think that, some of the, for people watching this video and people learning how to be more culturally sensitive, and we're going to make mistakes along the way. I mean, what human condition is, we're not perfect. We're going to make mistakes, but if you can do it in a respectful and dignified way, if you have questions, you can ask, and I'll try to be very calm about how I address you. And if I'm angry, it's probably not because of what just happened, but it's probably because this may have happened 5 times already today, or this may have happened a whole bunch of times in the last 6 months. So if I snap at you, please try to understand that this has probably happened a lot. Just want to say, it takes a whole village to change the world, and by working together, we'll get to change it together.
I would like people to know that LGBTQ people are the same as everyone else, and we'd like to be treated with compassion, dignity, and respect. And especially for those of us who are differently abled, as you can see from my lovely purple cane, to keep those things in mind, because we're all human, and that's all we love. The bottom line is love and respect.